Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Pokemon Showdown JavaScript class. We're finally back after the school fall term for colleges and, well, the first part of most high schoolers and middle schoolers and anyone else who may be here school year. So winter break's as good a time as any to finish up what little is left in this class to give you all the tools you need. At least, well, most of them. A lot of stuff you still have to learn on your own. And since it's been a good, it's August to December, it's been a while, I've decided that our first class back would be a recap. I think that would be appropriate. So this is going to play out a little differently. Instead of just pulling from the next section in the syllabus and going through that in great detail and whatever, we're gonna go through, I'm just gonna go through and not as deep as my other streams, because then this thing would be like 10 hours long, and nobody has 10 hours for that. I'm gonna go through all the sections we covered, so up to built-ins and through. Built-ins, I'll probably just gloss over in general and provide links, honestly. Maybe go over some common ones I use a lot. Oh, there's that thing again. There's that thing again. I apologize for the popping in advance. I can't do much about it. I need to replace my mic, and I have a new one coming in 5 days. So just a little longer, guys. Hey, Super Mario Fanism, welcome to the stream. Ooh, nice 3-month badge, by the way. Anyways, so we'll go over anything you guys want specifically. I'd be happy to jump around. I'll also go through everything, at least in general, starting from the beginning and moving from there. So please feel free to shoot questions at any time, whether it's Showdown related, JavaScript related, etc. Just go for it. That's what we're here for. So, goal is to fit this within 2 hours. We'll see if that happens. Probably. Because I'm not explaining functions and objects. So, off we go. We're gonna, actually I forgot to copy this over. 1 moment. I'm gonna just open this right up. And I'm going to close it out over here, and there we go. Alright, there we go. And I put that again out of here. And I put that again out of here. Hey, Anika's up. Anika's up. Jeez. Thank you for the follow as well. Oh, I'm terrible with names. Anyways, we're gonna hop right into this. So, let me pull up our syllabus here, and we'll go right from the top. Again, feel free to drop questions at any time, and I will answer them. So, this course, its core idea has been from the start to teach people, mostly Showdown users, because those are the ones who are probably going to be the most interested in it, how to code in JavaScript using NodeJS from nothing. In other words, you know nothing, no prior programming experience whatsoever. Those with it are, of course, welcome to join. It's just, you know, it's an advantage for you at that point. But yeah, so, and of course that also includes contributions to open source repositories like Showdown itself. Showdown is obviously a fairly big open source repository. So, the first section we went over day one was computer programming basics, which pretty much didn't have you write any code, but it's still very critical and probably one of the most critical days. So if you have not seen this one and you're new here and you're looking into this, I highly suggest when we're done with this, you go back and watch that. There's an entire playlist, which I can put in chat really quickly. But for now, I also suggest you pay attention to what I'm about to go through because that is also very critical. It has been Super Mario Fanism, it has. That's the link to the first one, and our Discord has the rest of them, as well as it's in a playlist on that YouTube channel. Now, as for this, I don't know why I went to Showdown there. So one point that I didn't bring up the first time, but I do want to bring up this time, is something I mentioned in the student announcement. When you think of a person, people, you can think of them as smart. So you might think of me as smart, you might think is Zeril as smart, or whoever, and that's not wrong. People are smart. We're able to infer things, so like if... Well, I don't have a good example right now, but we're able to understand things and apply situations that do a lot of complicated things. However, compared to computers, we're very slow. And that's the difference between us, really. Computers are two things. They are incredibly fast, is the first one. So if I pull up off stream, because I don't have it hooked up to stream, my task manager for my Windows computer, and I go to the CPU utilization tab, I see that it's currently running at 3.48 gigahertz, about 3.5. So a gigahertz, that means that the computer is currently doing 3.5 billion calculations a second. That's a lot. It's far faster than we could do it. None of us can do 3.5 billion math problems in a second. Even simple ones like adding 2 plus 2. Because, yeah, it's pretty sure it's doing like binary calculations at that level, binary math. Anyways, that's the concept there. You're not too late, JD. Thanks for the bits. So, again, computers are extremely fast, far faster than we could ever be. That's their advantage. Their disadvantage, however, is computers are extremely stupid. They're dumb. Now, you might be going, wait a minute, hold on. I'm looking at this Twitch site right now, and this is amazing that I could never do something like this. They must be smarter than me. Well, it seems like that, sure. But they're actually following a very, very specific set of instructions to get this to work. And they will do literally whatever that instruction says, even if it kills them. So, for example, at the hardware level, for the hardware class I took this fall, if you plug the pins in the wrong spots, you're going to short-circuit the computer and kill it. The computer will run anyways. It's not going to stop itself unless there's some instructions that says to check it. And, yeah, so if you change the instructions, they won't be able to infer, oh no, the previous instructions were better. They won't be able to learn from their situations. It's just, computers are very stupid. We have to tell them what to do. Whether that's we tell them how to learn exactly, instead of like us humans being able to know how to learn. Or just giving them instructions in general like we would do here, because we're not going into any sort of learning AIs in this class. Would be a little too advanced. But that's the concept. So you have to remember that a computer is very dumb, and you have to be very detailed and specific. And I believe that leads into my next point here. Yes, how a human thinks versus how a computer thinks. Computers follow a set of extremely detailed instructions to the letter. Like I said, if you tell the computer to do something that will cause it to catch on fire, it will. So, obviously that's not really a risk in JavaScript, so don't panic yourself. I'm just saying, computers are dumb. So, that's your concept there. When you're coding, you have to basically baby them. Another example I gave at the very beginning was if you're trying to write an extremely descriptive essay on how to do something, like I remember from years ago, someone trying to teach someone else how to do that kind of assignment for writing, how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Did not say to take the lid off the jar. The person because they weren't getting it, the person who was trying to write it, the teacher just took the knife and stuck it through the plastic lid of the jar and said, now what? Like, that was correct. That's the image I see whenever I think of a computer. Sure, the computer can think I'm dumb. I don't care. It doesn't get a choice to think unless I tell it to. Either way, you need to know that concept if you're going to program. You have to be very detailed and specific. So, writing scripts themselves. This follows a set of rules, I should say. If you're going to optimally write a script, you don't just come out and start typing code like it's no one's business. It's not a Hollywood movie where where everything flashes across the screen and you button mash your hands into the keyboard. It's completely unrealistic and hilarious. Instead, it's more a thought-out and slower process than one that you could actually do yourself. So the first step is to determine the goal. Hey, hockey fan! Thank you for the resub. Welcome back. How you doing? And so the first step is to determine your goal. You want to decide what you want to achieve or do. So whether that's something as simple as I want to add numbers together, or something as complicated as I want to do a Pokemon battle simulator. Design the script and break what you need to do down into individual tasks and steps. So something as simple as adding numbers, you might not need to break that down any further. That's incredibly simple already. Oh, you coming to visit me? But something like a Pokemon battle simulator, yeah, there's no way you can't do that without breaking that down several times. And when you break it down, sometimes you need to like break it into chunks. Like you might, if you wanted to break Showdown down, you might say client, server, then break the server down into chat, battles, and then break that down further until you get to a specific point like, okay, this method will handle ignoring abilities. It can be quite complicated. It can take a long time on extremely large projects. I hope you enjoy your vacation, hockey fan. It's always a nice time to enjoy a family vacation in the winter, especially since it's not so hot here. In addition, when you're breaking your steps down, you'll want to write out pseudocode. So pseudocode is kind of basically not actual code, it's just writing out your steps. So, for example, for pseudocode to... Why did I open it? For pseudocode to... Oh, I don't know. What was I doing earlier? I was doing modlog conversions. I was modifying some files and converting them. I had to read old files, convert old files to new format, remove endpoint of old files, read new files, append new files to old file content, write combined content to new file. That was my thought process for my stream earlier, for when I was working on mod logs, which isn't technically done because I ran into an out-of-memory error, but that's a different thing to deal with. But this obviously is not code that would run. This is just me writing notes. I wish there was a strike on Twitch. Yeah, that would be nice. But this is pseudocode, and it's very helpful to just write out your thing. And if something's too big, so like if you're not sure how you'd convert your old files to a new format, you might break that down. So you might say, okay, so first check for punishment entries and convert. And then you might break it down further with find with regex, use regex, replace to convert, something like that. And you don't need to know the details of what regex is right now, but it's just It's a tool that we used for that. That's all you really need to know. You could break things down more if you need to. If you know what you need to do, if it's small enough that you can handle it easily, then sure. So that's critical. Your third step is to code each step. So go in and start coding. When you code, you code from the top to the bottom of the file generally. Code executes from top to bottom like that. So code in that way if you can. If you need to move around, because you will later, do it. But you should code in a logical order just like you write your pseudocode in a logical order. So in our pseudocode, alright, thanks for popping in though, hockey fan. So for example, in this, we need to read our old files before we can convert our old files. So obviously, it's just like in our pseudocode, how that comes first. We need to write our actual code first. So we do like fs read file sync and all that good stuff before we ran the conversion stuff. Whatever you need to do. See you later. 4, test your code. It's important you test what you're doing and make sure it works properly, because a lot of time it's not going to work properly. The computer's going to follow your letters to the T, like I said, and you're going to make a very tiny, small mistake, and it's going to break, because it follows it to... It's, like I said, computers are dumb, and they will do exactly what you say, even if it hurts them, breaks them, it makes things not work, whatever. Whether it's extreme as setting itself on fire or completely destroying its motherboard, or something as simple as your program not working, which is most likely what you'll run into. Not frying your motherboard. I don't think anyone here is going to fry their motherboard with JavaScript, and if you do, you need to tell me how you did that, because I don't know how you do that. Don't go find out either. Don't try to do that, please. But yeah, test it. And step 5 is debug it. So when testing, you come across a few different types of bugs. You could come across a crash. In other words, like your program doesn't work. So like it just says syntax error or whatever. That means you have a problem with your code and it didn't work. Or it could be a logical error. So like if you add 2 plus 2 and your JavaScript result says 5, you know you have a problem unless you were trying to do something like a slightly off calculator that I've joked about a few times. If you don't get the expected result, then you have to check what's going on. That's a logical error. And the program thinks it's working properly, but it's not. Again, computers are not smart. They cannot self-adjust this for you. Fix it if it doesn't work, which is pretty often. Use Google. Google. Google is your best friend as a programmer. In most professions, it's frowned upon to go and, poke around. Like if you were, I don't know, a plumber or something, I don't think it would be the best thing to go around and Google up videos on how to fix the sink while you're on your job or something. If it's something pretty common or whatever, or anything at all really. But in programming, it's perfectly acceptable. It's perfectly acceptable just because of how nuts programming can be, and you come across things that you don't understand a lot. Like today, I was Googling up differences between regular expressions run in a browser and regular expressions in NodeJS. And it turned out it wasn't that, it was just me forgetting to trim a string, but whatever. Still, I had a question for Google. I thought it was that, and I needed to pull it up, and not everyone's going to have time to sit down and help you constantly. Google's your friend. Try that first. If you really can't figure it out, try a human, sure. But if you can figure things out on your own, that's really going to help you. So, creating a JavaScript file using the command line to run them with Node.js. This involves using your editor and that kind of stuff. So we have a JS file up here. To make a JS file, you just create a file with the .js extension on the end, kind of like how a Word document would have .docx or whatever. So Inside you could put whatever code you want. So in this case, we're just going to put in some code. You'll learn some more later if you're watching this recap, and if you're going through the entire class video set or have already done so, you should already know what you're doing with that, you know? So obviously write your code, save. In this case, we're just going to log some content to the console here, which I'll show here because apparently I was looking at the wrong tab. Pretty simple. To run it with Node.js, we pull up our terminal command line. Normally it starts usually somewhere other than what you want to do, and you need to use the change directory or cd command to go where you want to go. So like, let's say I was like back here in projects and I need to get into there, I just do cd psjs class to enter into the psjs class folder where I have my stuff. If I was in documents, I'd need to go into projects first. And we're going to do node recap.js, which is the file we have created, and it's going to log hello Twitch to the console, and that's it, which is exactly what we intended this to do. Okay, any questions as of this time? I need to pick up the pace, but that one was very important, so... Okay. There are some things actually. Okay, I'll get your roles for you, Anarchy. If my thingy would work. Thank you. And... Yep, okay, let's keep going then. Alright, readability and dry. Readability, pretty simple. Don't write your code all mushed up in one line or whatever. Don't do like if thing. There's something, whatever, something crazy like this. No, don't. Write decent code. As in how it looks. Make it, you know, I'm just BSing with whatever I write here, but it's not important. Make it readable like this. Spread it out, use spaces, that kind of stuff. If you need to add comments, do it. Explain what you're doing. So when you come back later, you're not, I wonder what I was doing here 2 weeks ago, or 2 months, or 2 years ago. I guess I better relearn it and spend hours doing that. Shush, JD, I'm not trying to actually write running code right now. Case sensitivity and camel case. In JavaScript, X is not the same as capital X. No VS Code, I did not want to do that. They're different, so be careful. You can't if you type something as extra, you can't type it as extra with a lowercase. That looked like Java for a sec. You gotta use the same case, and camel casing is our standard casing for variables and the like. That means if you have like a multi-word variable such as Pokemon Showdown, the first word starts with lowercase and the second one is uppercase, and it's all smashed together. So like, that's correct. This is not. Come on, no. Do that. And neither is this. It's been too long. Yeah, I figured that would be a problem. That's why I'm doing the recap. Thanks for the 25 bits, JD. Alright, basic data types. Let's keep rolling. Alright, console.log, like I showed earlier, is how you log things to the console. A detailed explanation is available in our second video. If you are seriously interested in getting into this, I highly suggest you start watching videos, because this recap is probably not going to be enough to teach you, because I cannot teach you JavaScript in 2 hours, guys. Errors, you'll know when you see them, really, because you'll get a big error message in your terminal. Basics of syntax, end lines with a semicolon, basically. That's one key thing. Most lines end with a semicolon. So, like, let 5e equal 5, or 6, I don't care. Semicolon ends the line. You'll learn details about that as we go, if you haven't already, but that's a general idea. Comments. Comments, a single line comment starts with 2 forward slashes. A multi-line starts with a forward slash and an asterisk. And it includes the line it was started on, and ends with asterisk followed by another forward slash. And it ends wherever you put that backslash, and starts wherever you put that forward slash. So if you have code before that, that code, or after it, it will run, even if it's on the same line. It's anywhere between those, and they can be on multiple lines. Alright, keywords. In JavaScript, there is a certain subset of keywords. Basically, these are specific words that are reserved and you cannot use except for their specified purposes. These words can include var, let, const, class, tons of them. There's a thingy for this. Let me just pull it up. Where is my keyword list? Come on, you should. That's not what I wanted, okay. This will have to do then. Alright. Those are keywords. There's a list of them. Feel free to review them whenever. And if something weird's happening, check to make sure what you're using isn't a keyword or a reserved word. Alright, types. There's various types of data, basic data. First of which that we're going to go into is the Boolean. Simply true or false, which also happen to be keywords. They are keywords that represent Boolean. As you can probably guess, true represents, well, true, and false is false. They're extremely basic. You can't really do anything with them on your own, but everything boils down to true or false. Got a string, if it has nothing in it, it can be equivalent to false. If you've got words in it, it's equivalent to true. Anything in it, actually, even a space and nothing else. So everything boils down to that, which makes sense because binary is literally 0 or 1. Hey, I like it, Fresher. How's it going? Welcome to the class. Welcome to the stream. This is a recap, so feel free to hang out and see if you're interested in potentially learning JavaScript if you haven't been. It's made for programmers, completely new programmers with no experience, but if you do have experience, that's welcome too. We'll probably be going a little too fast to learn from nothing today, though, since this is lesson 10 recap. We do have a playlist of this, though, buried in the class document. Anywho, numbers. You all know basic math. I assume you all have gone through elementary school, like 1st grade. If you haven't, I don't know why you're here. But yeah, numbers. 5, 3, 19, you get the idea. You know what to do with them. In that concept, so I'm not going to teach you about what a number is. Same guy that asked about Java the other day on Smog and Learning on a Code Academy. Yeah, Java wasn't too bad. Everyone Like, honestly, I don't know what to say about most languages because everyone just says, oh, this language is terrible, and they say that about literally every language, so I don't care. I think they all have their pros and cons, and I don't mind. Kid in first grade learning JS. He'd be some smart kid if he's doing well. But yeah, instead I'm going to teach you how to perform math. So math is pretty simple. You have your 2 plus 2, 2 minus 2, and you can use more things other than 2 for this, of course. I just am using 2. So plus, minus, multiplies the asterisk, as you may have seen in a calculator or something, and division is the /. And you also have something called modulus, which is a percent sign. Modulus is basically divide and keep the remainder, while divide will, get a decimal remainder. So if you'd like divide 3 by 2, that'll be 1. So like, obviously this would be 4. We all know that. This would be 0. This would also be 4, because 2 times 2 is 4. 2 divided by 2, I'm pretty sure would be 1. Actually, let me just make this 3s to make this clear. 1.5. And 3, that actually comes out to 1, because 3 divided by 2 is 1 with a remainder of 1, so it returns that. If we do 5 divided by 2, it's the same thing. Really, anything divided by 2 is going to be 0 or 1. Does JavaScript have int double splits like Java does? No, JavaScript actually just... Yes, I like a fetcher, that is actually true, but I'll get into that in a sec. It actually just uses one declaration type for everything, and you can swap types freely. It's not a strictly typed language, unless you're using TypeScript, a version of JavaScript which enforces that on its compiler. And even with that, it just has a number type, so it doesn't like have int double, etc. You just have numbers. Sure. Am I cutting out or something? Let me make sure I'm not cutting out first. Sure. Yeah, okay, I'm good. Am I cutting out or something? Let me make sure I'm not. And so, yeah, Java is a different programming language from JavaScript for anyone else who's wondering what's this Java thing. So it's a separate language, the names are similar, you're not the first one to get confused, my mother still gets confused. Oh, and with modulus. Okay, but yeah, Java's separate and strictly typed. That means if you declare a variable of type int, you can't make it a string later. Modulus, so the percent sign. Modulus is you divide... Basically, modulus is division. So let's take our example here in stream. 5 modulus 2. So you divide 5 divided by 2. Well, 2 goes into 5 twice, so you have a remainder of 1. If you were using division, you would continue dividing. You'd add decimal points and do all that, and you'd end up with a result 2.5. 2 goes into 5 2.5 times, which isn't wrong. However, modulus, it just gives you the remainder. Like, back in 4th grade or whatever, when they first taught you division, they didn't do decimals. They just taught you how to divide to get whole numbers, only integers. So you'd say the answer is 2 with a remainder of 1. Well, in this case, modulus uses that kind of division and gives you the remainder when you get the results. So 5 modulus 2 is 1. Your remainder. So 5 divided by 2, the remainder is 1, and that's what you get from that. And that's useful in certain situations. So for example, using modulus, anything divided modulus 2 is going to be 0 or 1. 0 is considered falsy and 1 is considered truthy. So 0 boils down to false, 1 boils down to true. So you could use that to check if a number's even or odd. If number modulus 2 is 1, it's even, otherwise it's odd. Hey, thanks for the bits, I like it, Fretcher. The math function, can you be more specific about the math function, and do you mean JavaScript or Java? Because if you're talking about a specific function on the math class, I could probably help you with that. If you're talking just math in general, I did just go over stuff, but if you meant modulus, I did just hit on that. But you have to be a little more specific than that. you have to be a little more specific. I'll get to your question in a sec. Let me see what's next on our list here. Oh, how to print your math result. Okay. To print to console in JavaScript, you type console, lowercase c, all of it's lowercase, dot log, open set of parentheses, you see I have 2 parentheses here, and put in what you want to log. So if we do 5 modulus 2, let's log that, and stick a semicolon on the end, just like we have up here. I'll comment out our, never mind, I'm not even going to bother. We'll go ahead and run this, it'll log, and I didn't save my file. Always save your files. It'll log hello Twitch, because we had that earlier, and 1, which is our result of 5 modulus 2. If we stuck 2 plus 2 in there, it would be logging 4 to the console. If we stuck 200 times 2, it would be logging 400 to the console. Whatever you put in, it'll do something with. So, like if I put something ridiculous in here, and I started my C# editor, I did not want to do that. We do something stupid like 200 times whatever this is that I just entered. I'm using a command line for running, which I would assume a Chromebook has. I'm pretty sure like every computer operating system in existence has that. And I'm using Visual Studio Code as a code editor. I'm not sure what Chromebook can handle because I'm pretty sure that's made for extremely basic things. So I don't know if you would meet the minimum requirements to do this, but to help you out, I do sometimes use this website that I'm going to link. Let me set it to the JavaScript and console. This. That, I'm not sure why it's not cooperating. Oh gosh, what's with the popping again? That, you enter your JavaScript on the left and you hit run on the right to run it, and it'll put whatever you log to the console in the output. So, hopefully that helps you out a bit. I mean, if you want to link them something else too, sure, I normally just work on my actual computer, so whatever you want to do, you know? But yeah, computers are very fast, like I said. So, moving on. Strings. Strings are strings of text, basically. They come in, they can be declared and used in 3 ways. Double quotes, single quotes, and whatever those little dashes are that can be found on the same key as the tiled button. You know, the squiggly thing the admins on Showdown have next to their name. You could put text inside of them, you could put numbers inside of them, like 7, or pretty much anything. You can literally put stuff in a string. And it'll all be a string, it's a type string. Even if you put only numbers inside of these, they are a string, not a number. So if you try to do 77 plus the number 7, you're going to end up with something called nan, which tells you you did something wrong. Yes, backticks, thank you. So that covers strings pretty much for now. And variables. Variables store information. They're what allow you to do things. Just like in algebra where you have x, which you know is a number, but you don't know anything else about it until you solve for x. Variables can contain various different things. Generally, you want variables to, at any given point in the code, be a type that you know of. So, for example, you know this is going to be a whole number, or this is going to be any type of number, or this is going to be a string. So you can work with it rather than it just being, ooh, mysterious type, I wonder what it is, boom. Because each type works differently. Like I said, you can't multiply 2 strings together. You can add numbers, but not multiply strings. And you get the idea. 3 ways to declare one. Var is the original way. You do var, the keyword var followed by the name. So if we wanted to declare a variable called x, we do var x and the semicolon. That creates a variable called x, and it's empty. If you want to assign a value to x, you do name a variable, in this case x equal whatever. So let's set x to 5. So x equal 5. And if we console.log x, we log x to the console. If I could get my editor up. And yeah, 77 is not a function. Thank you. I'm going to comment out these strings because I can't leave them sitting alone. You'll see it says 5 down here, which is the contents of x. Backticks can't you do where if you want to add a variable, you can say like hi x hone? Yes, you can. I'll get into that in a second. Other ways to declare not you. I didn't tell you to open a file. Include let, which is generally what you want to use in NodeJS for editable variables instead of var. Let, and there's also const. Const is like a variable, but once you assign a value to it, you cannot edit it ever again. In addition, when declaring, you could simplify the whole process with like let variable name equal value, so let y equal 4. And yeah, I'm not going to go over what you just said. I like it fresher in hindsight. We're taking too long already, so that's covered in strings, the strings video, if you're curious about adding things to strings and stuff like that. Thank you for the 50 bits, JD. Alright, next we're getting into some more interesting things, statements and loops. So the first of which is an if statement. It's a control statement. It lets you do some basic control over what your code is doing. So it's in the form of if condition code to execute, like that. So in this case, let's do if x is greater than 1. So there's various things you can do inside of these parentheses, including equals to, not equal to, not to be, and greater or equal to. Lesser than, and lesser than or equal to. So, for example, in this case, we're checking if x is greater than 1. And if you invert it around, then you're checking if 1 is greater than x. Can't see the screen. Oh, what do you mean you can't? Ah. Ignore me. There. Okay, but those are your general compare operators. You can also just literally stick a variable or something inside there and it'll boil it down to its simplest value, true or false, and do that. So like if x is 5 boils down to true. I know this because there's an extremely small pool of things that boil down to false and literally everything else becomes true. And for numbers, the only thing that boils down to false is the number 0, so yeah, so that would run. Anyways, x is greater than 3. Let's stick with that. If the condition turns out to boil down to true, so it says x, which is 5, is greater than 3. True. Then the code inside of here will run. Right now we just have comments, so nothing happens. So let's go ahead and do console.log. This statement only runs if x is greater than 3. So let's go back to our command line and run that. Hey, thanks for the 100 bits. I like it fresher. So we got our previous log statements of hello Twitch and then the value of x, which is 5. And then it logged this statement only runs if x is greater than 3. And obviously basic math says 5 is greater than 3. So what if we set this, change this 3 to 10, and then run it again, You notice that doesn't run this time because 5 is not greater than 10, it's less than 10. I'm sure you guys get the point at this point. If you do not, let me know. In these statements, anything outside of this will always run, so like if I put a statement down here where I just type gibberish, that would run. In addition, you can have an else statement after an if statement that says if the if statement did not run, so like if we have x is greater than 30 and we leave x as 5, then that won't run. Then we can have is false. So this statement only runs if x is greater than 3, x is greater than 30 is false. We'll update that real quick. And I'll get to chat in a sec. And as you can see, this statement only runs if x is greater than 30 is false, which is, true. Again, booleans. Alright, so chat, let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry about not forgetting to switch back earlier. My bad, my bad. Thank you very much for the compliment. I do try to stream daily, but I think I need to cut back on the number of days I stream just because I don't have the time. I'm currently trying to figure out the best days to do it on. Today has been a double header. Tomorrow, we'll see what happens. We're playing it by ear right now, but the goal is to stream a lot, yes. You don't have Discord. Oh, that sucks. If you do want notifications or whatever, I'm pretty sure you're already followed. Yes, so that's great. And you can always just keep an eye on me on Showdown if you use Showdown. I always put my Twitch channel as my status. And again, sorry about the popping. That's bothering me too. Just a little longer, guys, and we'll all get away from the popping. Alright, so those are your basics on if statements, I believe. Yeah, sure. I'm not going to go over and or not, because we're not running through enough time. There's switch statements, which I will briefly run through, which is in the form of switch condition, in this case x, we'll use x, and you have a number of cases, and if that value is equal to whatever's in the case, it'll run. Actually, I'm just going to put in a string like that, and case, I don't know, whatever, code, break. You could put in more than 2 cases like I am. Code, break, default. So, the concept here is switch whatever value you put in here. In this case, I didn't put, let me just set y to that, sure. So y is now equal to the string pizza. Switch y, which we try to compare y to each of the cases here. So is it equal to the string 1? No, don't run. Here's the next case. Pizza, is it equal to that? Yes, it would run whatever's here. When it reaches this break keyword, that tells it to stop. It's done. No more. It will not keep continuing. If you forget this break statement, it's going to keep going to this code. So don't forget your break statements unless you intentionally want it to do what it's called fall through. So you can always just, default runs if none of the cases evaluated the true. So in this case for y, it would run this code right here and not the default because it matched. But if I changed this to anything else like this, it would run this code and nothing else. The default, because that catches everything. You're not required to include a default if you don't want to do something for conditions that don't match. And if you only have a default, why are you using a switch statement, since you can just completely ditch the switch statement and just type the code without a switch statement? Alright, loops, for loops. We're gonna do some loop-de-loops or whatever. Looping, the concept behind looping is performing an action many times over, like a computer can do. That's one of their advantages, while not writing many lines of code. So for example, if you want to do some addition 100 times, you don't need to write 100 lines of code. You need to use a for loop. So for loops start with the keyword for and a set of parentheses and like that, kind of like an if, but with that. So you need to put some stuff inside of these parentheses, just like with ifs. three parts of it. The first part is the control variable. It controls the loop. You can use an existing one or you can create your own. In this case, we're going to do with the standard and create our own. So let I equal value. You have to create the value initially. So it's usually called I. So in this case, we create a variable called I, set its value to 0, and that I will be used to control this loop. So next is the condition. The condition is the condition that it checks before it runs each run of the loop. If the condition value is to true, it runs the loop. If false, it stops, and we continue to this code down beyond the loop here on line 64 and beyond. So in this case, we're going to set the condition to I is less than 100. As long as I is less than 100, it'll run. And it starts at 0, so it will run at least once. Then it's the incrementation step, or I don't know what to call it exactly. Basically, this step runs after the loop completes, before the next loop's condition is checked. Before it checks if it should run another loop. You use this to modify the control variable or whatever you want. Generally, modify the control variable, but sometimes you could do something completely different, as long as you're making sure your loop isn't infinite. So, for example, I++, which means add 1 to I. You could also do I equal I plus 1 if that's easier to understand. But yeah, I++. So in here, let's do x++. So each time it runs this loop, it's going to increase the value of x by 1, and it's going to do it 100 times. So that's much faster than doing x++, 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 100 times. You can see the benefit possibly. I plus equal 1 is also a way to do it, yes, but I++ is quicker. That's for incrementing by 1. If you wanted to increment by like 2, you would need to do I plus equal 2, or any other value. There's also a decrement version, I minus minus, which is go down by 1, but any other decrement you need to do manually, I minus equal 5, for example. So in our example here that we're going to run, we started with 5, x is 5. This statement only runs if x is greater than 30 is false, which again, x is 5, so that's why it ran. And then after that loop, we ended up with 105 for x. See here, we ran this, we started at 0, looped until I was less than 100, was greater than or equal to 100, and then each time it ended, we added 1 to I, and then we added 1 to x each time this block of code ran. So again, at the start, it creates this, it initializes the variable if needed. Then it checks before each run of the loop, including the first one, it checks if this condition is true. If it's false, it continues to line 64. If it's true, it runs this block of code, and then it runs this incrementation statement after loop. Then again, it'll check this. If it's true, it'll run this, and then do this, and then this, this, and so forth. But then once this is false, it'll go to line 64. Any questions on that? Again, this is a recap. We'll get to if you want to see a detailed run over for loops, again, there's a giant playlist with great detail covered, and I'm happy to take questions anytime on it. If you are confused, however, feel free to just drop the question in the chat, and I'll see if I can help you out. Okay, cool. Let's see here. Next step, I also wanted to cover while and do while loops. We're taking a long while already, so we're going to skip those, but those are different types of loops covered in that class as well. They're not as commonly used. We're gonna move to Git and GitHub basics. I have a fancy thing that shows my amazing art skills here somewhere that I need to pull in. Where is my, I need an image source. Let me pull it up real quick. No, I haven't saved in here. It's probably under stream. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay, and transition. There we go. There's our amazing art skill picture thing. I'll explain this, yes. So, first, what is GitHub and Git and all this stuff? GitHub is, yeah, I'm good at art. Oops. GitHub is this. It's a website for open source code. We are looking at Showdown right now. This is the code for Showdown. This is what I work on. This is what I administrate. And this is something you can work on too with JavaScript. It's pretty big. It's got over 1 million lines of code. It's complicated. You're not going to know all of it. I don't know every detail of it. Sockets is a good example of an area I have no idea what I'd be doing with. Yes, TypeScript as well, but that's basically JavaScript. You need to know JavaScript before you can learn TypeScript, so TypeScript is basically strictly typed JavaScript, so I'm not gonna fudge around with that. So, Git and GitHub. GitHub is where we do it. It's a collaborative place. Many different developers go together to work on open source projects such as Showdown. Git is a version control software that basically we use for this purpose. When you have 30 different people working on a project and everyone doing their own individual thing, the code is going to change in many different ways and at the same time. Git exists to allow developers to basically work around that. So you can get changes that others have made and add your changes on top and put it out for others and to get and put their work on top and so forth, as a very basic example. And that brings me to this masterpiece of some kind. I am not artistic, I am a programmer. Sorry. This is a look at and basically the idea of Git. You'll remember me drawing this on stream during day 4 when we did this. The upper part of this big center squiggly line is GitHub, so their servers or whatever, and the lower part is your computer, assuming you're not using like a Chromebook that can't handle much of anything. Again, minimum class requirements. Not so much client versus server here, actually, just more like your computer versus GitHub. Client versus server would be... But yeah, you use an IDE to code, though. I'm talking like actually coding on your computer. Anyways. Local is your computer in this situation, or wherever you use to code, if you use an IDE or whatever, like JD. These two are GitHub. In this case, we were using Showdown example, and at that time, it was not Smog on Pokemon Showdown, it was Zarl Pokemon Showdown, because we did not shift to an organization in August, we shifted like in October. Either way, same point stands. There's 3 things here. Your local copy of Showdown, your fork of Showdown, and Showdown itself. So Showdown itself is the copy of Showdown that is running on the site or will soon be running, because the GitHub's usually a few commits ahead. Each change is a commit, if you're confused about that. So on GitHub, you can fork repositories so you can make edits to it. Normally, you cannot edit it, because if we let anyone in the world edit Showdown, that would be a pretty bad idea, don't you think? And I mean like edit without review. If you want to make an edit to it, you can request a change to it, but you have to be approved. So, yeah. That's where forking comes in. So forking is this arrow. You fork a copy. That gives you a copy that you have full control over, and you can do whatever you fancy with, as long as it's within the terms of the open source software's license, which in this case is literally whatever you want to do. We're not responsible for it, though. So if you go blow up the world with it, we're not responsible. You are. To make those changes to the server, it's called a pull request, which we'll get to in a little bit. We'll go through the process of it all. So so right now you don't have this local copy. You need to, create that. So to do that, you have to clone. Usually you want to clone from your own fork. So in this case, you clone, which creates this repo from here. They're identical now. This is usually ahead of or identical to this, which is identical to this right now. At this point, all three are the same thing. They do change at different paces, though. It can be complicated sometimes. So that's your local copy. If you wanted to make, so the next concept to think of is pull. So obviously you just cloned it so it's up to date, but what happens if you come back in a month and you want to make further changes? Well, you're kind of a month behind of dev work, and that's not a good thing, because whatever bug you're trying to fix or whatever could have already been fixed by someone, or there could be an important change that you would be overwriting, or who knows what. That's why you need to pull. Pull pulls changes that other collaborators, other people have worked on to your local repo. So in this case, like it says, pull update from pull. You can pull from either or. Generally, you'll want to be pulling from, the main one, because yours is not going to automatically update. So you pull it to your local copy from here. So with that, with your local copy pulled from now, you have your changes on there. So that's how you get updates from there. So the next step, obviously, after you make your changes, and details on how to use Git to make changes and such is in the lesson on Git and GitHub and all that. I'm pretty sure that's day 4. You'll want to put your changes on the server. So if you're a collaborator, in other words, someone with write access, you could just push directly, like I can just push right directly to the main Showdown server. But most people can't. In this case, you watching most likely cannot push to the main Showdown GitHub. You'll have to push to your fork if you want to get it over. You'll have to take the long way. So you can push to your own because you're the administrator of that. You have full permissions on that. And from there, you do what's called a pull request. Excuse me. So, a pull request is a request to make a change to code. A change to Showdown in this case. So, you have your code changes over here, and you make a request there. So it opens up in a little window or whatever, and all the collaborators and such, and anyone else, if they want to, can go look at it, comment on it, make suggestions, talk it out, and basically both sides work together to decide if either A, the code change should be rejected and no changes made, or B, it's accepted, whether that's exactly as it is or after modifications and it's put into here. So if it's rejected, obviously it doesn't go in, but if it is, your change goes into here, and that's how you go from here to here if you are not a collaborator. And sometimes even as a collaborator, I will make a pull request on large changes like the Dynamax patch for Gen 8 and various other things like the abilities for Gen 8. Those are the most recent ones I can think of, but I do make pull requests for fairly large changes or ones where I want to have someone review my code, which is important. When collaborating with others, do remember that you'll need communication skills, because if you want to work with someone, you need to talk with someone and understand what they want. Sometimes the Showdown admins and such don't always communicate the best, or they misunderstand what you want, so try not to get upset, and we'll do the same for you. Zero can come off as scary. I know I mentioned that in my previous one. Everyone's all scared of Zero, but like, don't be. We're not gonna eat you. He's not gonna eat you. Zero may not communicate very much because, I don't know, he's just very busy, I guess. But just do your best with him when you do have to work with him. He doesn't mean harm. Alright, I think that covers Git. Any questions so far? Yeah, he can be harsh sometimes. He can come off as harsh. He's just trying to protect his server and do the best for it, though. And sometimes he gets cranky, just like me. So don't worry about it. Okay, let me see what's next, because I don't think we have any questions. Yeah, for a good look at Git, you'll want to watch the video from the playlist. Like I said, if you want to really learn this, you need to go through the playlist. This is mostly a refresher for those who've already taken the class. I cannot stress how important watching all the videos in the playlist is. Okay, let's see, I went over some Node.js things and one thing, but I'm going to skip that for now. Those were relatively minor. Oh dear, there's so much left actually. Alright, let's go over a few different parts still before we hit the end here. Arrays. Arrays are like a list. Think of it like a list. You have a list of various pieces of data, whether that's a number, string, boolean, or something else that you haven't learned yet. So, for example, you can have let A equal a set of square braces. That's defining an array named A. Hi, Shads. They're using me. Oh, you're not leaving? No problem, Soulbreaker. Hey, Soulbreaker! Jeez, I didn't see you show up. They used the me command, JD. Anyways, thanks for showing up, Shads and Soulbreaker. Always good to see you guys. Yes, that. Anyways. Arrays. Like I said, lists. You define them like this. Create a variable. Assign it to a set of square braces. You could put values in it too, obviously, because that's the point of it. Like, this one is holding a set of numbers from 5 through 10. There are various built-in methods to manipulate arrays, which we will get to a little bit later. They're covered in the built-in standard library area. So I don't know if I'll get them in this exact video because, again, time limit and extreme amount of content to cover in 2 hours. Because you're covering most of the course in 2 hours as a recap. I can't go into detail, guys. I did go into the detail for the first part because that's critical, but the rest I'm just going to have to gloss over somewhat. So to access a part of an array, obviously the whole thing is A, but that's not helpful because you can't do much with type array like that. You need to use the index. So you do A, set of square braces, the name of the array, set of square braces, and then the index number. So 1 as an example. So here's one part that might confuse you. What number in this array do you think A1 is? The 1th element in the array. Go ahead, take a guess. Do you think it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10? Just type in chat. I'll give you guys 10 seconds. Just type in chat. I'll give you guys 10 seconds. Just type in chat. And time's up. JD guesses 6, but the answer is, that is the answer. So, for a minute I thought I started with 6. I assumed you guys would get it wrong. JD got it right. In JavaScript, mostly because he's already done this. In JavaScript, arrays and well, every other language is like C# and Java that I've taken to. Arrays are 0 indexed. In other words, your index order is like this. 5 is the 0th index. 6 is the first index. So A0 is 5. A1 is 6, and so forth. So this item has 6 elements in the array. That means A5 is 10. A6 doesn't exist. So that should be a basic understanding of an array. Let me look at what else. That's your basic idea of arrays. In an array, you could put anything. You don't have to put all numbers. You could put numbers and strings and booleans and everything else in there at the same time, but that's kind of silly, isn't it? You don't want to have everything in there. You want your code to make some sense. You want to be able to understand and the computer to be able to handle it. So unless you're willing to write an array and handle every possible case for each value as you work with it, then you might want to like make sure that every item in that array is a number or a string or whatever you need to work with for whatever your work use case is. Everything I'm teaching you is like tools on a tool belt. So that's a pretty simplified explanation of an array. So yeah, that uses things like math.random and such, which again I'm not going to get into today. Now, the next two things we're getting into, for anyone who's new here, I'm going to warn you, is fairly complicated. You're going to probably want to watch that video, practice it, watch it again, practice it again, and watch it again, and practice it again, because it took me multiple tries to get these myself. Most people who I've spent a lot of time tutoring students on these concepts, so if you do not get it, ask questions, yes please, but do not, get frustrated or give up because of it. These are tricky concepts that I'm about to hit. We're going to look at objects and functions next. Specifically, we're starting with objects. Not this keyword right just yet, JD. We'll get to that in a little bit, though. That is also complicated. JavaScript is an object-oriented programming language, meaning I don't remember my spiel for this, but it is one. I'd have to go find it. The concept of it can be equated to like a set of P.O. boxes at your post office, if you've ever seen those. A bunch of little boxes, each with a specific number, so you know which one is which, and they all have different contents inside, usually mail, but they're different contents still. So that's the idea of it. An object is defined, sorry about that, like this. So let O equal set of curly braces. Notice it's curly, not square like with an array. Inside of objects, there are infinite, in other words, however many you want, set of key value pairs. Property value, key value, whatever. The first is the property, also known as the key. Like a P.O. box, that would be the number on the door. So, this can be, pretty sure, generally just a number and a string, but anything really. So, for example, let's say we're trying to write data for a shop. Watermelon could be a key. So, watermelons are a key. A property, and then you separate it with a colon, and then you put its value. And so let's say this table O, we're treating this like a table of prices. let's say it's something like that. So watermelons, and then the key is the item name, and the prop and the value, which we're about to put in, would be the price. So let's say watermelons are $5 each. Or I could change it to 50 and be Mr. Scrooge McDuck and watch the entire chat freak out at me. Not in this case, JD, it's an object. In this case, it's a property of an object. So watermelon is the property inside O, so O.watermelon would be 5. O is the variable. Each property is not its own variable. And you can have other things in here, like corn could be $2. Tomatoes could be, for once, reasonably priced if anyone's watched my objects and functions video. And we'll make it $1. And then in this case, we will go ahead and add oranges for like $50 because I want to see chat freak out. Something like that. And yes, you could do decimals if you wanted to, but don't feel like it, okay? After each key property, after each pair, you put a comma, and then the next one. It's optional to put it on the last one, like oranges doesn't need it, but I prefer to. Again, your choice. So, how do you do something with this thing? Let's just call it prices instead of O, because that makes more sense. Well, prices itself is an object. To get the value from it, you have a couple ways to do that. First is dot notation. So you do prices dot something. So as you can see with VS Code, it pulled up. Yes, I wanted to see you guys freak out over it. Have fun with that. It shows that the properties up here, corn, oranges, tomato, watermelon. You just type in the name of it that you want. So if you wanted to grab the price of a watermelon, prices.watermelon. That is going to be 50. Now, like VS Code is saying, watermelon number. It is in this, or 5 in this case, not 50, my bad. But prices.watermelon is the number 5, this axis. If you wanted to access it and you had like let item equal oranges, or I should change it to orange actually. That makes more sense in this situation. If you wanted to get the price of an orange and you had it in a variable like that, or well, I'll show the variable one in a little bit, but if you had a string and you wanted to get it, or a number or something, and it was something that a number could grab from, like if you had number then name of it or something for some reason, you do prices, a set of square braces, just like when accessing from an array, and then the name of it. So prices open square brace, the string corn close square brace is the same as prices dot corn, and over here this is prices dot watermelon is the same as prices watermelon string. They both effectively do the same thing. 5, this becomes 2. You want to use this if you have it in a variable. So for example, item equal orange, prices item. This is the same as prices dot orange, or prices, orange string. And it's also the same as prices dot orange. And of course both of those are 50. Yes, you can complain about oranges being too expensive, but it's an example, so I don't care. I get to make the rules here. So yes, that can be fairly complicated to understand there, but that's your basic idea of objects. Again, I highly, highly, highly suggest you go through the playlist and watch the videos when we're done here. And I take questions even if I'm not streaming, so contact me on Discord, send me a message on Twitch. You don't have to. Just like with a real-life market, you don't have to buy my outrageously priced oranges. Like I said, I highly suggest if you want to do the class, you join the Discord, ask for the student role, potentially stream notifications if you want to be notified for non-class streams. I will ping student for strings, good grief, for class streams. But yeah, so that's your extremely basic overview of objects. Functions and methods. So we have dealt with variables that hold data, but what about variables that hold code? That's the idea of a function. A function encapsulates or encloses its code into a little box, which is a key point of object-oriented programming. To declare one, you start with the keyword function instead of let or whatever, and then the name of it. So calc area. Let's calculate the area of a square. So we're creating a function called calc area, and it calculates the area of a square or rectangle. Next, you put a set of parentheses, and you don't need anything else in them, but you usually want something in them, depends. And then a set of braces. So like this. It kind of looks like some weird hybrid between an if statement and variable and a object, but it's not. So two things first. So the name of the function is calc area. The function currently has no code inside its braces, that's where they would be. It takes no arguments, which is what would be inside the parentheses, which I'll get to in a sec. Thank you for the follow, Adoxy. Welcome, welcome. I'm currently teaching a PS JavaScript class, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask in chat, whether it's about that in general or about what I'm going over right now. This is a recap lesson, so I will probably go too fast for anyone who's new, but I'm happy to take any questions at any time still, and direct you to a good place to get started. We're going much slower than this, because I just do not have time to do all this in 2 hours. So, arguments. A function can take arguments. Basically, these are variables that you define for the specific function and that change each time the function is run. So, when you define these, you don't need to do let or var or anything like that. You just put the name in. So, in this case, we're going to do x and y. You don't give them values either, because it changes each time. It depends on the function. Whoever's running the function provides the values. They're just x and y. So those are the variables. In this case, x is supposed to be the length or width, and y is supposed to be whichever wasn't chosen. It doesn't matter to me which order. I'm pretty sure it's usually length and width when you're calculating area. So we all know that to calculate the area of a square, it's length times width. Same thing for rectangles, so the solution is x times y. So you would use that code here. So if you just wanted to log that code, you could just do console.log x times y. And if we go up here and comment out everything else that's going to run so we don't get any extra mess. And yes, we did declare x already up there, but not a problem right now. I'll get to that another time. If we go back to our run thing and do this, and I didn't call it right, I'm a little ahead of myself there. To call a function, or run it as it's called, you call it, type the name of it, and then set a parentheses. So you don't have to pass any arguments, though if it does, you generally want to. If you don't, you're going to get undefined. They're going to be default undefined unless you add a default value. In this case, let's calculate the area of a rectangle with length of 4 and width of 8. Whatever those happen to be, whether it's yards, miles, inches, I don't care. So calc area 4, 8, x will be 4, y will be 8, and the solution is 32, which if you pull up your calculator and multiply 4 times 8, you'll find that is what happens. So it called and ran this. When you call this, it jumps back to here, inside of here. These variables are defined as 4 and 8, and then it logs this. We can do this multiple times, so if I add 5 and 5 as one of them, and then we calc area 2 and 4, calc area, something crazy like this, it'll all run. All of them. It'll do it as many times as needed. They're reusable. They don't work only once. All the code we've previously done only runs once when you run the file, and then it will not run again, because there's no way to tell it to run again without, telling the file to run again. That's the beauty of functions. So, functions can also return a value. So let's say instead of just logging it to the console, we want to log it and return the solution. So, using the keyword return, we can return a value, which means if you assign a variable to that, you get a result. So let result equal calc area that, and let's just get rid of this console.log completely. So then console.log result. So this now no longer logs to the console. Calc area itself will not log to the console. So if we do calc area 100, 100, and then result equal calc area 48, and we log result to the console, you're only going to see 32 on the console. This did run. It did do 100 times 100, but you didn't do anything with that result, so nothing happened. It just got garbage collected by the memory handler. So basically a waste of resources, but again, it's an example, and it's such a minimal thing for this example, it's fine. So we'll go ahead and run this to prove that. Again, only 32, like I said. I do know what I'm talking about most of the time. You can only return a value once. Once you return a value, the function will immediately stop wherever it is. So if you put return as the first statement in a function and then 100 lines, the other 100 lines will never run. If you do if certain situation return, then it'll only return sometimes. And that's how like a showdown command might work. So like a command on Showdown, let's say the mute command, you want to mute someone. Okay, but only staff are allowed to use that, right? We can't just have everyone running around and muting people left and right and up and down and all that. One moment. Sorry about that, had to answer a question for an upcoming event. Okay. Where was I? Dang it, I forgot where I was. Right, example with the mute command. Only staff are allowed to mute. So you could say at the start, make the mute command a function that can be reused because you're going to want to mute more than one person in the history of history. Most likely. If we never have to, that's a good thing, but yeah. You could have at the start of that function, if user is not staff member, this is me spouting off pseudocode, but you get the idea, return. The function stops and it doesn't run, but if you are a staff member, it continues. And the rest of it could be mute person specified by staff member. And you'd want more checks than that, like you want to make sure the staff member's trying to mute a person, actually mute someone that exists, and that they're not trying to mute an administrator or something silly like that, and all sorts of other checks. But that's the basic idea, at least. So, any questions on those areas right now? I don't think I'm going to get into this keyword unless JD wants me to. Because I know he mentioned that. If you want me to go over this, I can try to tackle that. Can confuse everyone else. You said you were wondering if you wanted me to go over this keyword, you know, like this dot whatever. Alright, yes, this keyword then. So, we'll just comment out this console.log for now. This keyword is very confusing. It literally means the word this. So, obviously, there's first of all the confusion with the English language this. So, trying to keep up with that. It's tricky, but this keyword, as I'm going to be calling it, to prevent any confusion with English language. Again, sorry about the popping. Refers to some sort of object depending on the context. This keyword is very context sensitive. So if I use it right here, it's going to refer to something pretty global. It's pretty useless right outside in the base space of a file. However, let's say inside our prices object up here, let's do something with that. Let's say we have say we have a checkout method. So a method is a function inside of a object, and it's declared like this. Let's add watermelons, corns, tomatoes, and oranges. Yes, I know corns isn't a proper word, but I do not care right now. Inside of this function, this keyword, not in uppercase, thank you, caps lock, refers to prices. So as you see, when I hover over it, Visual Studio shows me that. It says this is an object with a property called watermelon, which its value is a number, corn, which its value is a number, tomato, which value is a number, and orange, which value is a number, and a method called checkout, which takes 4 arguments, which are any type, and the function returns void. In other words, it doesn't return anything. So like calc area returns a number, as you can see down there. So this dot orange is going to be 50, just like prices dot orange is going to be 50. Now in this situation, you could use prices, but in a lot of situations you can't. You simply can't. And we'll get into a better use of this when we hit the classes class. Like there's classes in JavaScript. Don't get confused with that. That'll be next. So for all of those who are not too far, yeah. So orange. This dot orange, that'll be 50. So for example, let's say checkout. Each of these is supposed to be the number you want to buy of each, and it's supposed to return your total price. So we could do return watermelons times this dot watermelons. So like if you buy 0 watermelons, that's 0. If you buy 1, that's going to be 5. If you buy 2, it's going to be 10, and so forth. And same thing for the rest of these. Again, this dot whatever is going to be the price, because this refers to the current object. That is the key of this keyword. And oranges, this dot orange. So if we go down here and we let total cost equal prices dot checkout, and let's say we put 2, 2, 3, and we don't want any of those stupid expensive oranges that nobody likes. If I could spell prices as well, that would help. And we console.log total cost, that'll come out to whatever that total is. So walking through this step by step, because this can be fairly complicated, we could declare a variable called total cost and set it equal to the value of prices.checkout. So prices, an object. You can't call an object, but checkout is a property, and inside that property is a function. It's called a method, so we can call that. Hence why we can do this. We could stick this set of parentheses with numbers separated by commas, the arguments. So we call it, execution jumps to this line, return, okay, we're going to return the calculated value of this argument watermelons, times this, the keyword this, dot watermelons. So prices this object's watermelon property, the value of that. So 5. So 2 times 5, or 10. We add 10 plus the corn's argument times this dot corn. So 2 times 2, or 4. So it's now 14. Again, tomatoes times this dot tomato. Tomato is 1, and we have 3 in there, so that becomes 3, and 14, 15, 16. And then 0 times, well, anything, but in this case 50, because this dot orange is 0. So our total comes out to 16, I believe I said. So total cost comes out to 16, assuming that whatever I said earlier is 16. And then we log that to the console. So if we run this, that's 18, but you get the idea. It calculated. Well, yeah, I set them to $50. Who wants to buy that? So do you get that? A bit. Okay, what do you not get? Do you have any questions about it? Because, like, we have time. You don't understand how it's useful, though? Okay, fair. Okay. Well, if you don't understand it, be sure to tune into the next class, where we'll hit classes. So, in that case, moving on. Built-in standard library for existing data types. There's 5 of these. Again, sorry about the popping. The math global. Various ones that are not tied to numbers, but not tied to a keyword, but are related to numbers, such as parse int and isnan. Strings, objects, and arrays. So each of these standard libraries gives you various tools to work with. So for example, math.floor is a method that allows you to Yeah, I heard. Hold on. Yeah, I heard. Hold on. Okay. That should be better then. For example, math.floor. Math.floor is a method located on a global variable called math that allows you to get it rounds down, basically. Even if it was going to round up, it rounds down. Math.ceil would be the opposite. It always rounds up, and there is actually a math.round method as well that always rounds, as you would learn in math. There's other things like math.random, which gets a random number between 0 and 1, including 0 but not 1. It's almost always decimal. It would be so rare for it to not end up being a decimal. Things like parseInt can turn a string into an integer. Isnan can tell you if something is not a number, as in literally the keyword NaN, capital N's. Strings have various built-in data types like string.substring can get a specific part of a string based on the index you provide. Again, like array index is the first character is character 0, and the second one is character 1, and so forth. Arrays, push, pop, things like that. Push allows you to add an element to the end of an array. Pop allows you to get the last element of an array. Shift allows you to get the first element of an array, and unshift allows you to put an element at the front of an array. But all those modify the array. Some of them are mutating, in other words, they change whatever you're working with, and others do not. Yeah. Objects, they have various ones too. I can't remember off the top of my head. Well, object.keys allows you to get a list of keys. So in our store example, if you did object.keys prices, you would get an array containing the strings watermelon, corn, tomato, orange, and checkout. And you can also do like object.values to get the values. So if you did that on prices, you would get the number 5, the number 2, the number 1, the number 50, and a function in an array in that order. At least, I don't know about in that order, but you get the idea. Okay, so that was a pretty quick review on that. There's just too much to dig into, honestly. So again, recap of this whole thing. If you are totally new to this class, totally new to JavaScript, and you're feeling overwhelmed, I do not blame you. The big goal of this was not so much to come here and learn pretty much all of JavaScript in 2 hours. All the extremely important stuff, though. No. That is not how things work. If you've ever taken a class in like anything, you know it doesn't take 2 hours to learn it. JavaScript is no different. It doesn't even take a week, guys. It's going to take longer. You're not only going to have to watch the stuff, you're going to have to practice it, rewatch it, ask questions, that kind of stuff. Even if you're a returning student, remember that. So, for those of you who are new, this class document is your friend if you're interested in doing it. It has details on the class, the plans, and all the other detail in there. So, that should include links to all the videos. Yeah, it takes a while to get here. Contains links to all the videos on YouTube because Twitch videos expire for all the classes. I will, of course, be putting this one in there later. I just have to wait at least 24 hours after the end of the stream to do so because terms of service. Also in there's assignments for each day. Today there is no assignments. No worries about that. It was just a recap day. No special assignments. I highly suggest you complete the assignments after each day that they are made for. Some days don't have assignments, some days do. Most of them are just little coding exercises that are Pokemon related that I ask you to do. Feel free to send them to me and I can help you improve your code and such. Be sure to watch the stuff beforehand. If you're confused, again, questions are acceptable. It's not a go do it by yourself and I'll give you an A or whatever. No, they aren't graded at all. They're there to help you learn and improve. So that's what I'm here for. Come talk to me and I'll help you out. Let's see. Where was I going to go? JD, it takes about 2 years to get to where I am at, yeah. At this point, I know a lot of this stuff like the back of my hand just because I worked with it for 2-3 years daily. So, this isn't something that you just snap get. If you really want to get good with it, whether it's JavaScript or something else, if you're just using this as a stepping stone to see if you like programming and then go find whatever area you really want to work on. If you find, oh, I want to work in Unity, so I got to go learn and practice C#, then go for it. I'm just glad I helped you get into it and helped you with some core concepts, you know? Yeah. Let's see, what else do I need to go over before? Let's see. Oh yeah, and one of the assignments is actually playing a JavaScript game. That one's pretty fun. I might play it again myself. That's day 9. The last episode before the big break. So you'll have a while to get up to there, but play with that a bit. It'll really make you think, and I don't think any of the students got fairly far. I did beat that a few times, though. It'll test your creativity and problem-solving skills, which is a key part. Yeah, I feel NodeJS is a good asset to learn. Okay. Language. So let's see here. Class schedule. I don't have it set up yet, but the goal originally was every day, but I don't think every day is going to be feasible for most people. I might do every other day as a result. Sunday is going to be a fairly busy day for me, but I think I'll have time in the evening, so we'll look into going for our next episode on JavaScript classes as not like it's English language being a but again here, but it's basically an object factory, okay? This is where the this keyword will come into handy. The class keyword there. But yeah. Take your time to catch up. If too many people who actively want to, learn this stuff are behind, I can delay till Monday or whatever. We're on winter break, but I do want to get this done before people go back to school. I'm not waiting to summer break to finish this. We are getting this done, and if you are not interested in participating, well, I'm not going to wait on you. Again, you have questions, come to me, whatever. I'm here to help. Take a break to chill out if you're confused. Watch the videos again as you need to. And again, ask for help, and we will go ahead and get set to raid here for channel points and such. Let's see, who do we raid? We found a nice raid earlier, but I want to raid somebody else today because, well, not the same one is probably not the best idea to raid the same one over again. Anyways, I don't think they're online right now. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay. No. Sometimes there's just not much out there to raid. No? This could be interesting, sure. Again, I am still here for a little bit longer, so if you want to ask questions in chat, go for it. Otherwise, yeah, so we're going to go ahead and head off here. So thank you very much for watching, guys. If you're interested in more, feel free to follow and turn on notifications on Twitch. If you don't, watch your Twitch stuff. JD, that's Google's thing for anyone who's not signed in who's looking at a Google document. So those are people looking at the class document. If you're not interested in using Twitch for that, there's the Discord, which I'll link in a sec. You can go in there and ask for the student role if you want to participate in the class and get pings for that only. And you can ask for stream notifications if you want notifications for my stream in general. And lastly, if you don't use either of those, you can always, and you do use Showdown, you can always just click my name wherever you see it in chat. And if my status is set to this stream channel, twitch.tv/NolanHero, then I am currently streaming, or I just finished streaming and I forgot to turn it off. Whichever. wouldn't be too hard to just go to the URL as well. Either way, plenty of ways to find it. I'll leave it up to you how you want to do it if you are interested in watching it. And yeah, let's go raid. Thank you very much again, and we will see you next time.